Welcome to Tiger Wolf. I'm Josh, and this is David.
Please be aware, this podcast contains strong language and spoilers.
Jason. I break into people's houses at night, and I beat them within an inch of their life. Does that sound lawful to you?
I laugh every time.
Welcome to our wonderfully themed first episode of the season.
Drama!
So that should be an X-Men character name.
I mean, it is an X-Men character. His name is not Trauma.
His name is Legion.
I was going to say his name is Logan.
Oh, okay. Just most of them.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about trauma, hopefully more about the role of it as in stories and less of it our own.
I like how you just got it drilled off there.
I think this one's mostly on me because the two things recently that I've been enjoying that deal with it. And well, most things, honestly, most of the stories that we enjoy deal with it in some way, shape, or form.
Kat and I have been playing through Gears of War 5, which leans heavy on past traumas, not necessarily directly inflicted on the characters you're playing as, but the actions of previous characters that has shaped the world into this terrible place it is at that point in the story.
So recently I've been playing We Happy Few, and I watched The Boys. I should finish that almost a month ago now. Really good. I really enjoyed it. And I think that both of those really hinge on this as character motivation.
Yeah.
For We Happy Few, the spoiler alert, even though I think it's been out for a couple of years. But the end of chapter 1, your character realizes the terrible thing he did. And that got me to thinking, like, how do you cope with having done something terrible that, like, it's a self-induced trauma in the sense of not just, I mean, what he did was basically screw over his brother and himself in a sense.
Yeah.
It's like a post-war deal. Germany had won the war, and the kids were being shipped off to Germany. And the main character at the time, as a kid, was young enough to have been on the train, and his brother, who was a little slow, wasn't. And what he did, as I understand it, is get on the train, and his brother was going to join him. And then he got off the train and left his brother on the train. And the whole time that your character gets stopped and is talking to the police who are getting the kids on the train, you can hear his brother yelling out his name from the train. And it's like, it was hard to sit through as a cutscene. Like, this isn't like a realistic looking game or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that was like a very real moment in it. And he gives the cop his brother's ID and said that he was just escorting his brother, that he was going to join his brother because he's a little slow, but decided against it. And the cop was like, I understand that, and I'm not putting anybody else on this train that I don't need to. Because none of them felt right about doing this, obviously, given the situation. But, he doesn't remember this moment until the end of his adventure
The
of
end
getting
his
off
arc.
of the islands and getting to the mainland. It's literally on the bridge to the mainland that he remembers it. And he's just like, you know, he remembers it. And he's like, what have I done? What kind of person am I? Yada, yada, yada. And the constable, the weird thing, and this is probably, the game is written to be from the perspective of the character. So it may not be the truth that this person was even there on the bridge with him, but it was the same constable that he handed the ID to as a kid.
Yeah.
Who was like, well, you can take it as a gift that you know what kind of person you are. And all I could think was, how the fuck is that a gift? Like, honestly, like, yeah, sure, you can own it, but that's not necessarily coping it, you know? You can own it, but do you own it as something you need to improve about yourself? Or do you own it as just, I'm a terrible person, so I might as well be a terrible person?
I think that varies from person to person.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is, in the circumstances of somebody who feels that way about what they've done, right? That this is like, how am I supposed to live with it? Do they take it as fuel to become to work to be a better person, or do they just let it go to hell and say fuck it?
Mom took it as an attempt to, become better. So after I got out of high school and all that stuff, I was talking to Mom about the car wreck because it was her decision to go drinking. It was her decision.
See, I don't know all the details of this.
It was her decision to let Shelly's friend drive, which led to them taking a turn too quick, which led to the car accident that she was paralyzed in. I was thrown headfirst out the windshield. The whole kit caboodle. All hinged on Mom making the decision to go out drinking.
Yes. And
Mom's...
this is one of those situations where, like, I would understand her position that that she believes it's her fault, but I do not necessarily agree.
Yeah. The thing
like the driver is more at hand to fault on that. But continue. I'm sorry.
The thing Mom said to me was, because I always remember Mom telling me, you do the small things. Hold the door for somebody. If somebody if someone drops something, pick it up. Try to do as much small good in the world as you can. Because at some point, you may not be able to do a lot of big good. But at the same time, Mom literally looked at me and said, regardless of how much good I put in the world, it will never outweigh the one mistake I made in 1995.
From her perspective.
Yeah. As someone who's had his own traumas from that decision, I understood what she meant.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I just mean...
I didn't blame her for it. I understood, I could see why she blamed herself because,
basically what I said.
The order, if you look at it going back, yes, ultimately it hinged on her decision to go drinking.
But that's like the butterfly effect, right? Like,
yeah,
it's too many nodes down the line to be. I mean, even if it's just one, honestly, of asking this person to drive.
Yeah,
then even if you just use that one
at that point,
then it's like it's in their hands to not fuck that part up.
Yeah, you.
But I said, I'm not going to give too many details away because it's not my story to tell. I've had a very similar conversation with another friend of ours, who's probably listening, because he does support us on this. But that he was party to an accident, in the sense of, like, his actions may have caused their accident.
Yeah.
And I told him straight out, like, I was like, I completely understand your position on, because if I was in your position, I would blame myself too. But at the same time, it was ultimately their decision to do the things they did that caused that.
Mhm.
And yeah, that was a really real moment between him and I.
That brings us to the question of, at one point, do you take personal responsibility versus blaming somebody else?
Well, I mean, it depends on the agency you have to the situation, I think.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, like both of those examples, the agency to prevent the accident wasn't really in your hands.
Yeah.
But the agency to lead the course of events to it was a little bit, and that's why I feel like it's not necessarily okay, but understandable to blame yourself, and that like if I was in that position, I would like remember the gentleman who lived above me in the old apartment.
Yes.
That night that weekend that he passed away.
Yeah.
I heard him like fall or drop something, and I had the thought that maybe I should go check on him, but since I had previously heard him drop stuff in that and there's never been an issue, I was like, no, I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah.
And then turns out it wasn't. And so like there's a little bit of like me going, I really should have listened to myself. Because like who knows, I could have saved his life.
Yeah.
But also I could have just been the first person to see him dead.
Yeah.
Which would have been trauma on its own, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Regardless of what it is, death, if you are the first one that happens upon it, can be a traumatic experience.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like we take it for granted in a way that we can deal with it relatively easily in these movies and games and stuff that we play. But like in real life, that's a completely different experience, right?
Yes.
I mean, if I saw anybody, whether I knew them or not, die right in front of me, I would probably just immediately not be within myself. Like
yeah.
My brain would be going other places.
We have shut down.
Like, I mean, honestly, like there's a game I was watching a Let's Player play. It was about the Civil War, I think, or the Revolutionary War. It's one of the two. I can't remember. But like the way the people die in that, it felt a little too real because it's first person.
Yeah.
It's the 10-minute reloading gun deal,
Oh God.
Like it's all of that.
Oof.
And then when somebody gets hit, like right next to you, right in front of you, they just go down and they're done. And it's just like the Let's Player, when it happened to him, he was literally his friend he was playing with. He was talking to him and they were facing each other as characters, and then he just drops dead. And he was like, whoa, that was way too real. I felt something.
I'm going to just go this way. No, thank you.
Like it was legitimately unsettling in that in that way. And it was like, whoa.
I mean, but most of the characters most characters in general, the protagonists, 9 times out of 10 come from they have some sort of traumatic event in their past or in the immediate when you start playing as them. And you watch them try to either ignore it and then are forced to work through it, or choose to actively try to work through it, or ignore it until they are put in a position where they have to deal with it.
So that's
like
the thing
The
about
Last of Us.
Well, that's the thing about We Happy Few, which is kind of like that, is that the whole time, like all of the clues you get about his memories and stuff like that, like I knew it was coming, and it still made me very uncomfortable. Like I had a really hard time sitting through that cutscene. I think I actually took my headphones off for a moment because
you were like, no, I can't.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot because I could put myself in that position of feeling. Like,
Yeah.
not like,
The
how do I say it?
opening of Last of Us.
Not the like, I don't know whether or not I, as a kid, would have done something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know that. But the feeling of like, if I had a slow brother and him yelling from the train for me, and just like that feeling, that was too much for me.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be like, the only thing I could compare that to is like if I was in a crowd and I could hear like Oren yelling for me, and you know, you guys weren't there or something, and like I couldn't find him, you know?
Yeah. That
like that kind of thing. Like, we gotta fix this. We gotta fix this now. Like,
can I handle this?
I'm sorry. What you were saying about Last of Us?
Last of Us. The opening to Last of Us. Joel doesn't deal with that. What happens in the opening, until he has to deal with it with.
I mean, from
what's her name?
They hint at it that he went through a really hard time because of it. Him and his brother were bandits, were marauders for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
They straight up mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
They were, and then
been on both sides of this event.
I think it was actually like it was his brother basically being there for him. I think is the only reason he was there.
Yeah,
and like it worked to survive too, obviously. And I think it was eventually when Joel was like, I can't keep doing this, like hurting other people. We need to find another way, type of thing.
Yeah,
is when they quit and went their separate ways.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's probably some fallout because of that. But it might have been the other way around. It might have been his brother going, look, I can't keep hurting other people. And Joel going like, well, what choice do we have?
Yeah, well, I mean, what? This is like the way of the world now.
But also, like, how do you, like, that for me, for me, like, from my perspective of putting myself in Joel's shoes, I would have a hard time coping with the fact that I even did that for a while. Like, that's not the kind of, like, that's not where I am usually as a person.
Trauma can beget additional trauma.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm just saying, like, just
one
thinking about like
event can make you do other
I
things
think that's
that
why,
lead to more trauma to yourself.
And if you look at other games, for example, like Fallout, there's a certain level of insanity everybody has, like legitimate. Like there's a MatPat episode about it, and that kind of explains it. And then, but then you're looking at like the bandits in that, and it's like, how can they be this way? And it's literally because or even in Skyrim, how can they be willing to hurt other people? And then, but the rest of that sentence is to survive.
Yeah, that's
so like it, like you kind of understand it, but at the same time, it's still hard to quantify within your own way of thinking.
Yeah, you've
well, for me,
there are some people who are like, I can understand being a bandit. I can understand being a thief. I can understand doing these horrible things to other people so that I can survive.
And that's just it. It's like, I've never been in a position to know whether I would. You know, would I hurt other people to survive? Or would I, as I think I would, try to find a way for us both to benefit?
Yeah. I mean, that's...
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, this kind of brings
like being a thief, that's a different deal to me. That's a different deal altogether. Stealing stuff from somebody to survive is not the same thing as literally hurting them.
Yeah.
Or killing them. Or, you know, do you get what I'm saying? Emotionally hurting them, for that matter. Because, like, physical things, even if it's just a thing of monetary value that may have sentimental value, it's just a thing. At the end of the day, it's just a thing.
It is just a thing. But then what if you stole a loaf of bread from them?
Well, see, that's where it depends on who you're like. It gets into who are you stealing this from? Are you stealing this from somebody who can easily afford, relatively compared to you, easily afford another loaf of bread? Are you stealing this to eat?
Are you stealing it?
Or are you stealing it to steal?
Are you stealing it for yourself? Or are you stealing it because you're trying to sell it to someone else at a higher price? Or are you stealing it
Well,
to feed someone else?
Even that, like, here's what I'm saying. Like, if you go into like a, let's say, random nameless rich person's house to steal a piece of art off the wall to sell it, it doesn't really matter what the value is. Technically, you're doing that for a living. In one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Yes, they are technically worse off for it, but also they can afford to be that worse off for it, in my opinion. I'm not saying it's okay to go do that. Like, there's morally, that's not okay, unless that's your only choice.
No,
You get what I'm saying?
people would always argue there's always another choice.
But there's not. There's not always another choice.
There isn't,
And
but
that's literally what we're talking about. Like, it's honestly, I would consider that the better choice than going into a poor family's home and stealing their food so that you have food.
Yeah.
I would feel like that's a better choice than that. Because this person doesn't need to replace that. Those poor people need food.
yeah. But it's back and forth. I mean, but like I was saying, with the trauma begets more trauma. If a traumatic event happens to you, it may lead you to do questionable things, which in itself, the more you start thinking about the things you're doing, one of two things is going to happen. Either it's going to compound the trauma because you're having to try to rationalize why you're doing this.
So what you're saying is those bandits eventually are going to come to terms with what they're doing one way or the other?
Yeah.
Either they're going to have to realize what they're doing and knowledgeably ignore it, or
stop,
or figure out some other way of coping with it, of actually coping
with it, like
moving on with their life to doing things that they're trying to now counterbalance what they've done, or to continue doing it because they're okay with being that person.
Yeah. I mean, Wolverine. He is the best at what he does, and what he does isn't very nice. Wolverine is pretty much just a killing machine.
Well, honestly, I think the hard thing for him was accepting he was more than that.
Yeah, after so long of being that, and then he started realizing that there were other options.
Well, yeah,
but it's hard. It was hard for him to pick the other option.
Well, I mean, like the fact that he has friends and that he doesn't.
He goes from
he doesn't have to fight them, you know. Like,
he goes from a dark, brooding loner to
a rather open,
open headmaster for a time. And instead of his school gets attacked by the Hellfire Club,
but still knowing and understanding that he's capable of just ending a life if he needs to.
If he needs to.
But his needs to bar went up. You know,
attacks.
It has to be this level now instead of I don't like them.
Yeah, like the Hellfire Club attacks his school, and his students repel them because he's been teaching them to use their powers to be able to survive, not to be a weapon like he was. And there is a difference there.
Oh yeah. Xavier used his students as weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, to be real, like
he did.
Scott was his laser gun.
Yeah, Scott was a weapon, and then that compounded later to Scott to literally having Magneto look at him and go, "Scott, you're sounding like me."
Well, the weird thing is that because Xavier always did have that whole we need to live in harmony thing, but I really feel like he was as ready to pull the trigger as Magneto was. He was just more willing to do it against mutants.
Yeah, I believe so.
Because he felt like in the long term, it was more important to not do it against humans.
Mm-hmm. But what Wolverine ends up doing, instead of getting his students going and storming the Hellfire Club because they attacked them, he calls a lawyer friend of his who happens to be blind and has him file a lawsuit with the Hellfire Club to repair the damages done to the school.
The Hellfire Club an officially like recognized club?
Yes.
Ah. Damn, that was a mistake, huh?
Yeah. Wolverine fucked them without even popping his claws.
I could just see that conversation playing out. Not all claws are metal. Could you just imagine him sitting at a desk and be like,
"You want me to sue them?" Yes.
Well, no, that part, like, I feel like Daredevil would have been like,
"Okay,
are you sure you don't want me to beat them to death?" But and Wolverine's just like, really? But also, like, just like if he like met up with the leader of the Hellfire Club, just be like, not all claws are metal.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a really great demonstration of what he was to what he became.
Yeah, and this is kind of getting into like what we discussed our beliefs on like trauma and where the limits lie and stuff like that and how we feel about it, mostly how I feel about it. But the point was to get into how it affects characters in their stories. And like for Joel, it made him a very real character.
Yeah, it did.
Like not necessarily because I could put myself in his position, not necessarily his understanding.
Yeah.
In a sense, like Wolverine. I mean, obviously, we've gone into why you two connect.
Yeah.
But also like Graceland and why I connect to him, and that whole like kind of dealing with yourself type stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it just like at its core, everybody has something, right? And that's why we connect and understand characters that also have something going on in like a trauma sense.
Yeah, even if their trauma is exponentially worse comparatively, I used air quotes there.
It makes them feel legitimate.
You can understand it to some extent.
And it also makes their stories more compelling, right? Because either they're trying to live up to this idea of themselves, or they're trying to fix themselves, or they're trying to just like or you just want to experience that story arc of whatever it is for them.
Yeah.
Is it them becoming better and becoming the headmaster and learning how to deal with things other than violence? Or is it them
that chunk of their story where they are at the bottom of their well?
And then also where they get out of it.
The dark.
Well, yes, but usually those stories are about them eventually coming out of it.
Yeah, but I mean,
what I'm saying is
on which arc you enjoy reading or watching or whatever.
And we don't see this one much because we prefer the hero's story. But also, I would be compelled to see the arc of this is just me understanding that I am this terrible person, and I'm just going to be that terrible person for a while.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody at work about this, and I've talked to you about this. I'm pretty sure I've talked to you guys about this before. But Vader going and killing the Jedi, I want to see that story. I want to see him struggling with the fact that, because he'd still be struggling with it.
He would be. Yeah, I mean,
we wouldn't necessarily see it on his helmet, but we would see this. Like he would be struggling because I want to see that whole him learning about himself, his new self.
I mean, he was still struggling with it during the original trilogy. I mean, it didn't seem as much, but
he was struggling. He was struggling that this one was his son.
Yeah, when it came to his son,
like because it made him realize that like everything I've done was for this person in front of me right now. How can I end this person in front of me right now when everything I did was for them?
Yeah.
What does that mean for everything I did? Like we don't see that so much because it was a 70s movie, but you know, it's there. It's the reason why there was a conflict between them and why Vader didn't just lop off his head.
Yeah.
Because he fucking could have.
And then, you know, why in the end, he picked up the Emperor and threw him over the railing.
Right. But what I mean is like, I want to see the whole,
that chunk of the story that's where they are the dark.
Shut up and let me talk.
No.
Not just that chunk of the story, but like him discovering all the powers and stuff like that he realized in the extended universe books, like the ability to heal himself, but because that calms him, it only goes so far. And like the ability to manipulate the force such that he can like manipulate and use his lightsaber at a distance in some sense.
Throw.
Yeah, yes, throw, but yeah, exactly.
Catch.
And all the things that he could do, all the things that he learned about himself in his own training and against these Jedi. Like, because you can't tell me each one of them was going to be an easy fight. These were Jedi Masters.
I would say they really should not have been an easy fight.
Some of them might have been.
Yeah.
None of them were going to be as easy as the younglings, though.
Nope.
And the last time he came up against a Jedi Master, he was burned alive. So it was. So my point is like, do you know what I'm saying? So when he's going up against the survivors out there, because that's what he did for like the next 20 years, was 15, 20 years, was go hunt down Jedi one by one by one.
Mm-hmm.
That's why in the beginning of the first movie, when he came and basically took control of the ship, the Star Destroyer, it was kind of an odd thing because up to that point, he'd basically just been a hitman.
Like people,
and people were afraid of him. They knew who he was in the Empire because he was the hitman who went around slaying Jedi.
He was the guy that killed the other oogie boogies.
Right? So when he comes in, he's finally in a different official capacity. They're like terrified of him because all they know him to be is a one-man wrecking team.
Yeah.
But again, we don't really get that information from the movie itself because a lot of it wasn't actually there. But it's actually kind of, you can see it. Like they're terrified of him. This is just a good explanation of why they would be terrified of him, other than because he's the Emperor's number one.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I think we've rounded it out fairly well for traumatic events. Let's go talk about something else. Well, I suppose that's the end of the episode.
Please like, comment, follow, and share. And also, more importantly, thank you for listening.
Take care. Bye.